Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Ride Your Life podcast, or as we like to call it, the ROYL podcast. My name is Donnie, for all those tuning in for the first time. I am the host of the podcast, and this week we have a fun topic, and we'll talk about that topic in just a moment. But if you're tuning in for the first time, go ahead and be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow our podcast here. I think you might enjoy it, and if this is your first episode, hey, this could be a test run to see if you like it or not, but uh, I do think you will enjoy it. It's fun for me. I don't know about y'all, but it's fun for me to put these together for you all and just to uh, do a little bit of this research on the topic that we're talking about today, as well as other topics, and just interview some really awesome people. And we have some more guests coming up this season. We'll mention those later in the episode, but uh, I really do enjoy this, and I hope you all enjoy it. But the best way for me to know if you're enjoying it or not is by leaving us some feedback. If you don't mind, one of the ways you can do this is by leaving a review, whether it's by the star method. I think Spotify does. I don't know about Apple. But if you leave a review, this gets it into the hands of those who need to hear it. And then for me to get feedback is to see and hear your thoughts. And you can do that by completing our 2023 feedback form. You can find this on our website, rideyourlifeministries.com, as well as the link in our bio of our social media. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, all that good stuff. Even on YouTube, I think there's a link to it. But by filling out that form, it just tells me if you're enjoying this podcast, what you don't like, what can be improved, what you want to see continue. All that stuff helps make the podcast better and helps me understand, hey, is this something we want to pursue, or do we want to put this off to the side and focus on other ways to reach people and just to interact? But if you don't mind doing those two things, and that's leaving a review, the star method, however you choose to leave your review, or by completing the interest or the feedback form from this past year, that will help us immensely. So if you could do that, that would be great. But without any further delay, you may have seen by the title of this or have seen on our social media, today we are talking about the Holy Land Experience. This is a defunct Christian theme park, and I use that loosely, and you'll see why when we get into the topic today. It's an experience. Yeah, we'll talk about it today. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. You do not want to miss a second, so go ahead and buckle up, because here we go. Everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Ride Your Life podcast. This week I have a fun little topic for us to talk about and to discuss and look into. This is a defunct Christian theme park, to say the least. And I use that loosely because there's no rides here. And it's a very show-driven park. It's definitely an experience. I'll tell you that. It's an experience because what they're trying to get with this park, this attraction, is making you feel like you have stepped back in time and you're in the days of Jesus. So it's you're living in the time of Jesus is what this attraction is. And it has a few different lands and things like that, but I do want to start things off with just giving you an overview of the park, I guess, and just letting you hear from the source here. I guess I don't know how to really put this, but we're going to go ahead and listen to the TV spot that premiered on CBN. I guess it's like a Christian broadcasting network type thing. Um, yeah, so the 700 Club, I believe, is on there. I never really watched it growing up, uh, but I was aware of the channel. But this is a spot they had about the Holy Land experience, and I'll play this, and I'll even have this video on our social media so you can see it. I'm sure you can YouTube it and all that. But here's what they have to say about the Holy Land experience.
About 1 mile from Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, is a unique family attraction called the Holy Land Experience. On this 15-acre Bible Land themed park, guests walk among recreations of the Garden Tomb, Herod's Temple, the Old City of Jerusalem, and the Qumran Caves.
The Temple Plaza is about a 2/3 scale of Herod's Temple, that's similar to the way it would be in the time of Christ. And it's a beautifully built, and we do a lot of dramatic presentations there in the Temple Plaza. And then of course we have kind of the centerpiece of our production is the reenactment of the Passion drama that's at the, we have a tomb and cross area that is a very, very dramatic and very authentic recreation of how it may have been when Christ was actually crucified and rose again.
The Holy Land Experience also contains state-of-the-art historical exhibits.
The scriptorium, which is behind us here, is an incredible exhibit that gives you the history of the Bible. It actually begins with the history of the written word.
Highlights in the scriptorium include an early edition of Pilgrim's Progress, sermon notes from Charles Spurgeon, an animatronic John Wycliffe character, and rare first edition Bible manuscripts.
It's one of the world's largest private collections of Bibles and biblical antiquities, and it's a fascinating exhibit. It takes you from the history of the written word to the history of the English Bible, and it tells us how we have the Word of God today and where it came from.
There's also a wilderness tabernacle attraction.
So that's a recreation of what it would have been like when the children of Israel were in the wilderness and they offered sacrifices in the wilderness tabernacle. And there's some special effects that go on and the Shekinah glory of God, and it's really quite a unique experience.
The Crystal Living Water Show is a new addition to the park.
With the inspirational music that is played and the waters that go along with it, you can see people being touched and ministered to every day through the music and through the presentation of the waters. It's really a blessing.
The children's play area is dedicated to stories from the Bible.
We have totally remodeled what we call the Kids Venture area. We have a lot of wonderful attractions for children. We have a Jonah and the Whale where they can actually walk into the belly of the whale, and Noah's Ark where we have a little theatrical presentation for the kids. Lots of fun stuff for them to do.
Visitors have the chance to experience biblical history through dramas that go on all day. Les Chevaldayoff plays Jesus Christ.
When I see someone's mind, when they come in looking like this, or some husband that's been dragged here because they have to be here, or some kids from a youth group that they have to go because of a mission trip, and at the end of the day, they either have tears in their eyes or I got a chance to pray for them to receive Christ, that's when it steps in the supernatural.
All in all, TBN's Holy Land Experience in Orlando is a unique family attraction that entertains, teaches, and inspires.
Obviously, people love to come to Orlando for the theme parks, but we offer an opportunity for people to be inspired, to be touched by the gospel in a unique way, to be blessed, to see their families blessed.
Okay, so that's just a little, I guess, flyover, if you would, of the Holy Land experience. As I've mentioned in posts and even at the start of the show, this is something I experienced myself, and I'll give you a little bit of my recollection. This was years ago. I believe it was around 2010, 2011, but I will give my recollection on that later on. But I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Sam over at Expedition Theme Park. He is a YouTuber, and he does a lot of defunct parks and attractions and things like that, and talks about the history of them in really in-depth, good quality videos. I highly recommend checking his stuff out. Again, that is Expedition Theme Park, and his wife is Jackie, who does Super Enthused. They're really nice people. I haven't met them, but from their videos, they seem like really awesome people. And one of his videos is really in depth about the Holy Land experience, like its conception, its ups and downs and things like that. I'm going to do a flyover of that today, but if you want to see a very visual and very in-depth study or look into this park, I highly recommend checking it out. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode is obviously we are a Christian faith-based podcast and ministry, and we like theme parks, so the two mesh together. And I've also been to this park, so I can give my personal eyewitness experience of the Holy Land experience as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share some things I found about the Holy Land experience. Obviously, uh, when I visited this with my family, I was a lot younger, so uh, I'm going off a lot of what I remember. I remember quite a bit, but yeah. But I did a little bit of research and found on that website where it's like website or internet time capsule or something like that. Yeah, so I found the original website of the Holy Land experience, and boy, was it 2090 type, that basic website. It's like basic coding is what it was. And I found a press kit from there, as well as like a bio from the founder, I guess, of the park. So I'm going to go ahead and read this letter from the creator of the park, the director of the time, and here's what he had to say. And this was right before they built the park. This is when they just announced it. This is coming to Orlando. This is right down the street from Universal and things like that. His name is Marvin Rosenthal. Here's what he had to say about the park and its conception and thought and vision for it. So it says, in concept, the Holy Land experience is an idea whose time has come. It has taken 12 years to move from concept to completion. With great care, each detail of the Holy Land experience has been made to the best of our ability, to accuracy confirmed to the Bible and biblical history. In quality of construction and theming, the Holy Land experience compares favorably with some of the finest museums around anywhere in America. In terms of Christ honoring Christian venues, we believe it sets a new standard. In purpose, the Holy Land experience is a world apart. While both fun and exciting for the whole family, its singular purpose is to provide answers to life's most important questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? And what is life really all about? In fulfillment of purpose, the Holy Land experience has been totally dependent on God for his provision and direction. We have been humbled to be a part of it. We would be truly honored if you came and visit us at the Holy Land experience here in beautiful Orlando, Florida. Come join us for the journey of a lifetime. Wishing you every blessing from the God of creation and redemption. Marvin Rosenthal. No. Yeah, so that was his opening statements. That's, I guess, like his Walt Disney statement for this park, his vision, his heart behind it. And I could tell that there was heart put into this attraction. It wasn't just something like, hey, we're going to throw out a Christian park. This is truly a park that was a passion project of this man. And to go even further back with the story of the park, I found this, I guess, Spark Notes version of the history of this park and how it got started and its conception and things like that. So here's what it has to say, and this is from the beautiful world of Wikipedia. So I trust it because this lines up with what Sam said in his video. And again, this is just a flyover Spark Notes version of what Sam of Expedition Theme Park had to say. So it says, the park has its origin in a dream of Marvin Rosenthal, a Jewish of Russian origin who became a Baptist pastor, founder of the missionary organization Zion's Hope, who bought the land in Orlando in 1989. So this has been quite some time of development. But the park opened in February 2001. So this has been a project that's been going on for years at this point there. So it opened in 2001. And it says in August 17th of 2002, the Holy Land Experience Scriptorium Museum opened. It featured the Van Kampen collection of biblically related artifacts. The collection included ancient scrolls, manuscripts, and early printed editions of the Bible. The collection was the fourth largest of its kind. The Van Kampen collection also was founded in 1986 by Robert and Judith Van Kampen. In 1994, Robert Van Kampen established a privately funded research library for the purpose of presenting the collection of academic community as well as the general public. The Scriptorium Center of Christian Antiquities, located in Grand Haven, Michigan, housed the collection. In 2002, the collection relocated to Orlando, where it is loaned to the Holy Land Experience. In June of 2007, the Holy Land Experience Board of Directors sold the property to Trinity Broadcasting, or TBN, for an estimated $37 million. The property was an estimated $8 million in debt at the time of the sale. At that time, TBN planned to update the park and use the property to build Central Florida Broadcasting Facility and a movie studio in order to produce Christian films. And this is about the time I went, so I went in the age of TBN, and I have a lot to say about that. But moving on with this description here in the story, it said in August 21st of 2007, former president and board member Tom Powell resigned his position to seek new challenges. 4 people remained on the park's board: Paul Crouch Sr., Jan Crouch, Paul Crouch Jr., and Matthew Crouch. Between 50 to 100 employees lost their jobs when they were cut from payroll in October of 2007. Jan Crouch was director and CEO until her death in May of 2016. Under TBN's ownership, the Holy Land Experience underwent construction and addition of new landscaping, exhibits, restaurants, and theaters, which featured live musical and theatrical productions. The park also introduced weekly Bible studies, church services, and live cooking demonstrations. That's very interesting. The Smile of a Child Adventureland was added to the park's exhibits. The children's park featured exhibits and activities for children, such as a wilderness rock climbing wall, toy store, children's theater, and a craft center. The Holy Land Experience was a non-denominational Christian living biblical museum and church. Church service and Bible studies again were held and conducted by ordained pastors of the general public on a weekly basis. The Holy Land Experience registered as a nonprofit corporation with the Orlando Department of State Division and Corporations. In February of 2022, and here's where we see the defunct part of things. In February of 2020, with a sharp decline in revenue with the several years, the park announced that it would be laying off, 118 employees, representing most of its staff, and would be ending all theatrical productions, restaurants, and retail shops. On August 2nd of 2021, the property was sold to Advent Health, which plans to redevelop the land for a new emergency department, hospital, and office building. On April 28th, 2023, demolitions of the building of the former amusement park were started. On June 12th, 2023, the last buildings were demolished where the Coliseum and Scriptorium stood. So that is the Holy Land Experience in a flyover SparkNote version. And yeah, it appears it had a very interesting life through ups and downs and things like that. And I will say, and kudos to them for attempting this, there's nothing like it. And honestly, I believe this paved the way for the attractions we have today with the Creation Museum and Ark Encounter. This is one of the first of its kinds. This predates the Creation Museum. The Creation Museum opened in 2007, I believe is what Alan said on the podcast. But this opened early 2000s, state of the art for the time. and house a lot of exhibits and things like that. And I got a map here, and I'm going to go ahead and go through all these things here of what it had. And this might be the point where I just go ahead and throw in my 2 cents of what I remember and recall and give some stories there. But just as a, I guess, backtrack to this park and my experience with it, I forget how I found this park, but it's one of those things where my family was going to Florida. I don't think it was specifically to Orlando, but we were on just a vacation, is down towards Indian Rocks Beach, and we just had the week down there. So we're like, okay, let's go ahead and let's check this place out. I'm young at the time. I may have seen it on TBN just passing through and caught my eye. Like, wow, a theme park with Jesus walking around. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it was interesting. It really caught my eye. I don't remember exactly how I found it, but we did. We found it, and we decided to check it out. So we went there as a family, and I do have a few pictures here. I'll go ahead and post these on social media as well. But what we have here is some lands, very well themed lands. I mean, like this stuff it was top notch, top quality. But one of the things that clearly made it a TBN park when I went, and this, like I said, the time I visited was when TBN owned it after the bankruptcy there. But it was very glitz and glamoury version of Jesus's times. I'm sure there wasn't gold rocks and gold stuff all over the place, but it was very TBN-ish. And if you know anything about TBN, it was very, very gaudy type stuff, and no pun intended, but it is very in your face type gold and all that stuff. And I'm not here to bash TBN. I'm sure many great things have come out of that. I'm like everything, it has its own skeletons, a closet, whatever. But it was very gaudy. Of course, Herod's temple would have to be gold. That's biblically accurate, but there's some things that were just weird. One of the things I remember, and this will probably pop up later when we go around this park map, but one of the weird things I thought, and it's quite honestly blasphemous, it was Jesus on a motorcycle. I don't know why Jesus was on a motorcycle. He had these big angel wings on. He's on a motorcycle. His long, flowing black hair. He's got a leather vest on. It's like this is so deviant, but I digress. But let's go ahead and look at this map. We'll go ahead and go around the whole park here. So once coming up to the park, you drive in, and from my recollection, they had a big marquee sign that you drive past, going past the parking tolls there. It said Holy Land Experience, and of course, it had the TBN logo around it, and all of that. But one of the first things you come across once you get out of your car, you parked your car, beep, beep, whatever, is the Garden of Eden. So they had a little garden outside of the park itself. Before you even get to the turnstiles, there's a little garden there with some plastic animals, like the little ceramic animals out there. Nice little walk-through area. Then Bethlehem Bus Loop. I guess that's where the tour groups and buses and things would go, drop off their people there. Then we have the Shepherd's Field and the Faces of Jesus statue. So these were right up close to the entrance of the park, and it was basically a recreation of the Nativity. They had Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, angels, shepherds, wise men, all that stuff out there. They were playing Christmas music over in that area. I remember that. Thankfully, it wasn't glitz and glamour gold, but they had that. And then, if you've ever been to Pigeon Forge and remember the Christus Gardens, or even the Biblical Times Theater that's there currently, there's this statue outside. It's called the Face of Jesus, and it's with the verse, "The eyes of the Lord run to and fro, beholding the good and evil. Um, it's it's that effect they have in the Haunted Mansion with the busts, where the face follows you once you walk and all that, move side to side. They had that effect there with Jesus' face. It's pretty cool, and they had that at the entrance. And then the main entrance, they have the Eastern Gate. You walk through the Eastern Gate. If you know anything about biblical history or just world history, it's Eastern Gate. You'd walk through that, and there you'd have the turnstiles go through there. And then as soon as you walk in, you're in Jerusalem. You're in the Jerusalem marketplace. They had local craftsmen there. They had wood carvers, um, fabric people, metal workers. You felt like you were in Jerusalem marketplace. So you're walking through there, and then all of a sudden, I'm referring to this map as well. So you get through there, and you can either, like any park, you can turn left or right. To the right, we'll go ahead and start in that little area. It's a little off section. So if you make a right once you come out of the Jerusalem marketplace, you again have another twist to turn left or right. So if you were to go to the left, they had a little exhibit there. It's a sit down show, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And I have a DVD of this as well, like a recording of this. It's called the Wilderness Tabernacle, and what it is they had a guy dressed up as Aaron, Moses' brother, who was the priest there. So he would go into the tabernacle, and this show was narrated by the guy playing Aaron, as well as like supposedly a voice of God type thing, not a Morgan Freeman type thing, but he would go through the tabernacle and talk about each of the different instruments and different pieces of furniture in there. So it would start off with talking about the tabernacle, how it was built, the dimensions of it, and on the outside they had like the brazen altar, the the bowl there, the brazen bowl, that the priest would wash his hands and things like that. And then, like I said, the brazen altar where they sacrificed the lambs there. But there would come a point when they get done with the outside portion, he walks inside, the lights go down, and then the tabernacle itself is made out of a scrim. And Aaron would walk through the tabernacle, do all the different rituals, I guess, of it. So he lit the menorah. And then they would have a light over the menorah talking about it, the symbolism of the menorah, the purpose of it. Then he would go over to the table of showbread, which is where they had the showbread. Go figure. He would talk about the purpose of that and just how it represented Passover and Jesus' body. Then they had the altar of incense. Then I believe, if I remember right, they had a puff out scent. So it had that aroma of the incense that was being burnt there. Then they'd talk about the incense, and then just the other instruments and furniture of the tabernacle. They'd go through that. And then they would get to the holies of holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was. And this was really cool. So, you know, the Ark of the Covenant, obviously from the Bible and from Indiana Jones. What they would do, once he gets in there, the lights would all go dark. You couldn't see him at all. You would just see the Ark light up. And then they'd start quoting scripture and talking about the importance of the Ark of the Covenant and how it's where God dwelt. And it talked about the tablets that were in there, Moses' rod, and the showbread inside of there. Talk about the purpose of all those. And then all of a sudden, a big, huge puff of smoke with light comes out. You would see the priest, Aaron, just raising his hands and all that. And then the show would end. They would give like a gospel presentation afterwards, talking about how the tabernacle was how God dwelt with the people back in the Old Testament. But now we have Jesus Christ living inside of us, and how he was the final sacrifice, the final Lamb of God. It was a really neat show. It's one of those things I want to watch that DVD again. It was so cool. But that was the Wilderness Tabernacle. But if you were to go to the right, it's that Smile of a Child kids area that they talked about, or that's what it was at the time. And that area, I remember it being dead. I don't remember any actors, any workers over in that area. I don't even think that gift shop they mentioned was open. But in that area, to get into the land, you would have to go through the parting of the Red Sea. So you would play Moses at this point. You get to walk through um, the Red Sea, and it's kind of like that wave photo op that they have at City Walk at Universal, where you're on that surfboard, but you're walking through the Red Sea. And once you get out of the Red Sea, you look up, and there's Moses with his outstretched arm with the rod. And there would be like little spritz of water every now and then once you're walking through. It was nice because I remember it being a hot day there. And by looking at the pictures, I could definitely tell it was a hot, sunny day because I was roasted. And the fun fact about me, I get roasted if I'm out in the sun. Yeah, I burn easily. But anyways, once you get through the Red Sea, you come upon Jonah and the whale. So you had the big whale there. You go inside. There's animatronic Jonah moving around, praying to God, saying, "Forgive me," all that stuff. And you had other little fish and stuff like that, and they're talking is cartoony. It's very cartoony. But once you got out of the whale, you would see Noah's Ark, and you walk in there, and I think they had like little games in there, little crafts that kids could do, and I think they did, like they said in that video, little productions, but I didn't see any productions in there or children's theater type things. And then off to the left of that, so that was the area kind of symbolized the major stories of the Old Testament. And then they had like a bell ringer game, where you take them out, try to hit the bell at the top. That was themed to David and Goliath. That was pretty cool. So you played David and all that. But once you go around the corner, it was more of the New Testament stories of Jesus. And one of the cool photo ops that I have a picture of myself with is walking on water with Jesus. So you're playing Peter in this photo op, and it looks like you're sinking, and then Jesus stretching out his arm. You can hold his arm and things like that, and have a few photo ops with Jesus. And they have a photo op too. I can't believe I get a picture with this, but I do remember it. It was a legion of like Roman soldiers, and they had like how how Disney has the Jedi training camp. They apparently had a show where you could train to be a Roman soldier. That's just how the park was. But that was like the New Testament section, smaller than the Old Testament photo ops. But really, that area was just a photo op, and then they had that rock wall. I remember that, but no one was working that. So that was the Smile Child area. So let's go back to the front of the park, but this time take a left. So once you get out of the Jerusalem marketplace and you take a left, and the first thing you come across is the Garden of Gethsemane, I believe, according to this map. Yeah, so the Garden of Gethsemane, it was really just a separated area in the park where you could go and pray. It was a pretty legit recreation of what the garden could have looked like in the time of Jesus. They even had a figurine or a sculpture of Jesus praying in the corner, and had like of course, they had the stained glass of Jesus praying, that famous picture where he's looking up to heaven, the light shining down on him. And they also had a rock that you could get a picture of. I don't think that was a good idea to have it in a prayer area, but they had a photo op area where you could go and pray at the rock that Jesus would have prayed at in the Garden of Gethsemane. So that was the Garden of Gethsemane prayer area, and just like a relaxation area. And as terrible as it sounds, I think it was like a smoking area too, but whatever. Once you get over a little bit, once you come out of the Garden of Gethsemane, there was like a little cave area, and you go inside and you could have communion with Jesus, and that was kind of weird. But some people might find it cool, but you could take communion with Jesus in there. But the Corman Caves, a replica of the desert cave where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. This was just a rock formation, and inside of it is where they had communion. But again, just the detail that they had in historical accuracy and biblical accuracy is what that was. And then later that would play a part in the crucifixion show, which we'll talk about in just a moment once we make our ways around the park. But the Corman Caves there, is what you can see there. And on the other side of the caves, they had a replica of the Nativity. Again, they had yet another Nativity scene in there, model of Bethlehem in there as well. And then they had a replica of what they believed to be the birthplace of Jesus in there. And again, that whipping post for the crucifixion is out there. A model or like a mock up of what that could have been like. And then they had another garden there, it says, of Jehovah Jireh, healing garden. I don't remember that at all. And okay, let's go ahead and go towards the center then, based off this map. But here in the dead center of the park was the Calvary's Garden tomb. And I'm sure it's just because of space. I don't know what their idea and thought was behind that. But here's where they would have the Passion Play production. They would basically recap everything from Jesus praying in the garden till his resurrection. So it started off where Jesus is there praying in the garden with his disciples, and they have this really neat effect where it looked like he was dripping drops of blood, sweating that great drops of blood, as the Bible says. So he's down there, he's praying his heart out. He's like, why don't you pray with me? Then they have the soldiers coming in from both sides of this amphitheater, and they arrest him, take him out, go back over to that mountain we just talked about, and they whipped him. And it is neat how they did that effect. I think it was probably like fake blood on the whip. It's just some leather straps that they just hit him with. But made it look like he was being whipped. And then they brought him back to the garden here, led him up the mountain. And I remember Sandy Patty's song, Via Dolorosa, was playing during this whole section here. And then he's up on the cross. They do the effect where it looks like they're nailing him to the cross. The soldiers lifted up. He says the seven great last words on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Today you'll be with me in paradise. To act like the two thieves are there. And just say all those verses from Scripture on the cross. Jesus dies. They take him off the cross. They put him in the tomb. I think they do a little bit more with the centurion who repents. They do a scene there. Mary, Martha, all of them are anointing Jesus, putting him in the tomb. And then they have the resurrection. I remember they also had that Sandy Patty song, We Shall Behold Him, playing as he comes out of the tomb. Smoke, effects, all that stuff. Jesus comes out. And that was the Passion Play. And he gets up on the mountain. They do the final last words of Jesus on earth at the top of the mountain. And Jesus comes out and does meet and greets with everybody. And they have a portion, too, afterwards where they have some of the actors and some of the park's people by the tomb if people want to talk about how they can know Jesus Christ, their Savior, share the plan of salvation with them, and all that, and all the photo ops were there as well. So that was the Calvary's Garden tomb area. Very neat, neat production. You get a year-round Easter drama, so to speak, from that. And then they have a little area. I don't remember this specifically. Really didn't stick out, I guess. Actually, yeah, I do. I didn't know it was the Road to Emmaus, but they apparently had a replica of the Road to Emmaus, but they had this big pond. They had a statue of Jesus walking on water there, and this is where they would have their nightly show that I don't remember seeing. I don't think we stayed there till park closed, or the park may have closed earlier. I don't remember, but they have a little lake there. Jesus is walking on the water. So that's the Road to Emmaus. The Testimony Cross. This is pretty cool. I don't remember participating in this. I don't think my family did, but they had this big cross in like a little alcove area where you could nail your prayer requests or nail your sins to the cross per se. They would take those every day off the cross and pray over them as they close the park. Pray over the guest type thing. That's pretty neat. The Oasis Palms Cafe. I do remember eating here. The reason being is this is the only restaurant I remember there being at the park. There may be more, but the Oasis Palms Cafe, they had like your burgers, fries, pizza, all that stuff. I think we had burgers that day. Don't exactly remember the meal, but I remember they had your typical theme park food there. And then Jesus' boat, they had a little replica area where you could get a photo op of the boat that historically Jesus could have um, been in when he was calming the raging sea, when they went to the Gadarenes, when he was walking on water with Peter, all that stuff. Uh, so they had replica of Jesus' boat. And then if you were to walk straight ahead from that, excuse me, you'd come across the park's icon, and that is Herod's temple, a replica, a scale model of Herod's um, temple. So King Herod was the king of the time of Jesus and all that, and they had a scale replica, and this is where they would have stage shows throughout the day. So it's like your castle show almost at Disney, but that's pretty cool. It's neat. Got a picture of that in front of the temple, and they did have a replica, as we see here, of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Here's where people could also put their prayer requests, sign their name on the wall, things like that. Really neat. So that was the Temple Plaza area. And here's the description they had: featuring a replica of the Temple of Jerusalem during the reign of Herod in 66 AD. Really cool. And then they had a Theater of Life. I think that was inside the temple, but we didn't obviously go inside there because it was closed. So you could do, it says you could do karaoke. Yeah, we would have definitely skipped out on that. But then TV and family movies also are playing there, but it says see daily schedule for times. So there's that. And then they have the Royal Portico, the Royal Portico, um, and this had more refreshments. So it says refreshments, turkey legs, and ice cream novelties. All right. And then Christus Gardens. I do know later, I think this is a later map of the property, but I know the exhibit, once it closed in Gatlinburg, it was Gatlinburg. It closed in Gatlinburg, and they shipped all the wax figures down to Orlando to be a part of it. They were actually building this when we were there. It was a historical size model of the Church of All Nations, like a Roman Colosseum type thing. You'd go in there, big, huge stage productions were in there, biblical stories. A very downsized sight and sound production is how I would put it. So that was at the Christus Gardens building there. You could walk through that. And then the Jerusalem model AD 66, that was cool. This was inside a gift shop. So this model was in the middle of this huge gift shop. And this gift shop obviously had like your t-shirts, pins, all that stuff. But it also had like very like Jewish not memorabilia, but like gifts. So they had like prayer shawls, shofars, menorahs, dreidels, and things like that you could purchase. Not only was it just like your typical theme park stuff, but you could purchase stuff from actual Jerusalem, like things that were made and shipped from Jerusalem. You could buy them there. But the scale model was really neat. And here's the description they had for that. It said, the world's largest indoor model of Jerusalem presentation expands the city's landmarks of Christ's final days in Jerusalem. It was a 30-minute presentation where they would have a guy go up in the model. They had like a walkway for him. He would use a laser pointer and point out the different spots where Jesus walked and interacted at. And they're actually doing a version of this down at the Creation Museum Ark Encounter very soon. So Alan Green, the one that was on here last week, he mentioned that they're building this similar model at the Ark Encounter at their Welcome Center. So stay tuned for that. You'll kind of get an idea of what it was like at the Holy Land experience with that. And then the Shofar Auditorium, again, that's inside the Church of All Nations theater there, big production, state-of-the-art venue where they had like an LED wall, screen projection, stuff like that. The Shofar Shop is what I talked about. with all the jewelry, distinct gifts, and more. Bethlehem Bell Tower, a replica of the bell tower at the Church of the Nativity in Israel. That was more on the outside of the park, but it was attached to that Church of All Nations section there. The Church of All Nations, the 2,000 seat auditorium there for presentations, baptisms, and such. And that's where I guess they recorded the Praise the Lord program from TBM. And then Cardo Walk, observation deck area of the Church of All Nations. I guess you could go on top of that. I don't know. And this is what you could see on iDrive once you're driving by. This would be the one big thing that you'd say, oh yeah, that's the Holy Land experience. You can see the Church of All Nations in all of its golden glory out there. So that's the Church of All Nations. Cardo Walk, observation deck, we talked about that. The Scriptorium, this was cool. And the Scriptorium was a walkthrough, I believe it's like an hour-long walkthrough. It was a guided tour through the history of the Bible. And not just biblical accounts and things like that, but how it was written, how it was preserved through time. I wish there was something like this. But as soon as you walk in, there's an animatronic. I remember this, and I'm going off memory here. There's an animatronic of, I believe it was King James, and talking about writing the Bible and how it was preserved through the ages and how the manuscripts were found and things like that. But you'd go through different rooms and find different pieces of history of how we got the Bible, from the printing press, from discovering the Dead Sea Scrolls, all that stuff. You'd go through all those exhibits. Phenomenal. I wish I really could have paid attention. Like, I was a kid at the time, so it was like, okay, another museum, whatever. But I wish I could go through, see those manuscripts and things like that. But when you get to the very end of that exhibit, I remember this vividly. They had the Hall of Faith, which if you know your Bible a little bit, it's Hebrews chapter 11, where it talks about the heroes of the faith. So like your Abrahams, Moses, Noah, David, Samson, Esther, all these people, the heroes of the faith. You're in this big rotunda, and there's all these curtains in between pillars. And they would read Hebrews chapter 11 and talk about each of these people of the faith. When they get to those characters, the screen would pull back, the curtain would pull back, and there they would have like a statue of that character. A light would shine on them, and they would have like a little scene play out, placed like the moment they're well known for, as well as the reading of Hebrews chapter 11. I remember that vividly. It was awesome. And of course, some of that stuff was golden, but it was really neat, and I wish I could experience that again. I wish there was something like that. The Hall of Faith, it's neat to see those heroes of the faith represented in that way. But that was the Scriptorium. I wish I could find a video. I hope there's a video on YouTube for this. I would recommend it if there was. And then the Ex Libris Bible Shoppe, or Ex Libris Bible Shop, I guess is what it is. Bibles, books, and more are there. And the Living Word Prayer Gardens, another prayer garden on the property. He is risen. And that was like a topiary type thing that spelled out He is risen. It is right behind the lake there that we talked about, where Jesus was walking on the water. And Sebion's Corner, I guess, is another restaurant here where it's like a food cart with hot dogs, turkey legs, snacks, and refreshments. Cool. And the Crystal Living Water Show. Again, I didn't get to experience that. And then they had another bus tour loop that you could go in and out of. But that's an overview flyover of the Holy Land experience and a little bit of my recollection of it. I wish there was something like it. And here's where I gave a little teaser on our story this week. I believe it was Friday evening, where I put out a story on our Instagram account. I mentioned that I wanted to share with you something that I'm working on, that I don't know if it's going to be this season or next season. But I want to share with you all a concept that I have for a biblical theme park. Things I've taken from this park as well as my own what I would like to see in a Christian theme park. I won't tell everything, but I'm excited to share this with you all. And this park would actually feature attractions, actual rides and things like that, some coasters and dark rides and things like that. But that's going to be a topic I want to save for later. But yeah, just a little teaser of what you can expect. But the name of the park is going to be announced later. I have a name and I have the lands and all that stuff. But I'm just not ready to share it yet. I want to make it in a very impactful, I guess for lack of better words, a very well put together presentation to share with you all. It may not be this season, but I definitely want to get it out before the end of 2024 and share with you all this vision, this park concept that I have of a Christian theme park that's not cheesy. So, my thoughts on the Holy Land experience. It was really cool for what it was in the time that it was built and conceptualized and brought to fruition. I think they did a really good job with it. TBN went a little overboard with things, sure, but they really preserved this gem. And those of you who may have experienced this, you know it was special. It was truly an experience. Sure, it didn't have rides. It didn't have really what we have today at theme parks. This was truly a learning atmosphere. I'd consider it kind of like how the Ark Encounter is right now. I'm sure, obviously, they've got a vision and a plan, overview plan for the park, but it's a really learning. It's a learning environment where you can draw closer to God, learn more about who He is, and see the Bible brought to life. And I believe that's the goal and mission that gentleman had for this park. And TBN, again, glad they saved this park, and it lasted as long as it did. It lasted a few decades, which that's awesome. So I do want to cover more parks like this, some quote-unquote Christian parks. There are a few out there, and they have some interesting history with them, and I want to talk about them eventually. But that is our main segment for this week about the Holy Land experience. And like I mentioned in the stories this past week, if you had any experience with the Holy Land experience, I'd love to hear your stories and hear what you liked, you didn't like, all that stuff. I'd love to hear that and just reminisce on this park. It's one of those things that it's a memory for me, and I wouldn't trade it. Obviously, this was cool, and I'd love to experience it still and bring my kids to it someday. But unfortunately, it's no longer there. But you have your YouTubers out there who will bash this thing and make fun of it, but it was truly, it was unique, it was special, and it was Christ honoring. So kudos to them for bringing this to fruition and bringing Jesus to Orlando. So that is our main segment for today. So I need a water break, so I have a special treat for you all this week. During our water break, I have a little clip here from a good friend of ours here at Rive Your Life Ministry, Miss Katie Kreiner. She made a little segment for us this week here on the show. So we're going to go ahead and listen to Miss Katie Kreiner with this week's special segment. Take it away, Katie.
Hey everyone, this is Katie from Katie's Coasters, and in this segment of the podcast, I'm going to be sharing with you the top 5 best new, most anticipated roller coasters opening in the US this year in 2024. First up, coming in at the number 5 spot, I see Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City. Located in Branson, Missouri, Silver Dollar City is one of the greatest theme parks of all time, and personally, my all-time favorite theme park I've been to. This park was home to a very old and iconic dark ride known as Fire in the Hole, and it first opened up back in 1972. The ride was super cool cool, but at the same time, you can see the age showing. But this year in 2024, Silver Dollar City is having Rocky Mountain Construction come in and totally redo this ride. They're definitely going to be retracking it. I'm not sure if the ride's going to be like the same layout or how they're going to do it. All I know is RMC is going to be retracking the ride. So first of all, that's incredible. And this new coaster is supposed to open at the park in summer of 2024. So very exciting things coming to Silver Dollar City. I can't wait to see how this new version of such an old and iconic dark ride it turns out to be. Very excited. Next up, I see at the number 4 spot, we have Penguin Trek at SeaWorld Orlando. So SeaWorld Orlando is getting yet again another new roller coaster. They got 2 back-to-back roller coasters in the past 2 years, and they're getting another one. Back in 2022, the park got Icebreaker. 2023, the park got Pipeline, and now in 2024, the park will be getting a B&M family roller coaster known as Penguin Trek. This new roller coaster is a prototype model. We have never seen anything like it in the world before. It is a family launched coaster model, and it will be seating passengers 2 wide. Normally, these B&M manufactured coasters only sit a minimum of 4 passengers across a row, but this coaster is a first of its kind to only feature 2 passengers in a row. Track work is already happening for this new coaster, and let me tell you, it looks so good. It's going to fit the park so well. I definitely think this is a great addition for SeaWorld Orlando, and I can't wait to see how it benefits the park. So excited to ride Penguin Trek. It looks so much fun. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we are heading up to Allentown, Pennsylvania to Dorney Park. Dorney Park will be receiving a brand new B&M dive coaster known as Iron Menace. This new coaster will stand at a whopping 154 feet tall and go a max speed of 64 miles per hour. Finally, Dorney Park is getting a much needed new roller coaster, and I think that this Iron Menace dive coaster will be a great fit for the park. Now sure, it may not be the tallest or fastest dive coaster we've seen in the past, but this still definitely looks like a very incredible ride. And I also really love the theme that they're pushing with this as well. The ride design and layout looks very similar to Dr. Diabolical's dive coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, which I also have rode, and that was so much fun. So very excited to have a close park near me receive a new roller coaster. Can't wait to ride it. Now we're coming into the top 2 spots, and oh my goodness, these are some of the best. I cannot wait for these. This whole list has been amazing, but these 2 really just stand out to me. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Flash Vertical Velocity coming to Six Flags Great Adventure Resort in Jackson, New Jersey. Manufactured by Vekoma, this will be the world's 2nd Super Boomerang coaster model. And oh my goodness, I'm so happy that Six Flags Great Adventure is getting yet again another new coaster. This park already has one of the most stacked and best coaster collections of all time, and they're getting even more coasters. Like, this park is truly underrated. But aside from that, let's talk more about this awesome new looking roller coaster. So with these Boomerang coasters, from what I know, you first launch out of the station, and then you go through the first part of the ride's layout, and then you go up this spike that the ride will feature. As you make it up that spike, you will quickly fall back down backwards, go through the ride's layout backwards, and then make it to the other part of the ride section, and then go through that part of the layout as well. So you kind of get to go through part of the layout twice. It just looks super cool. I'm not sure if I explained that well. I'm sure I'll have a better understanding once I ride this coaster, but man, it looks super thrilling. This coaster will also feature a 0G roll and a top speed of 59 miles per hour, so that is honestly pretty fast. So for a better understanding of where this coaster will be located in the park, it will be located within Metropolis, right across from the Justice League Dark Ride. So this part of the park has been needing something major for a good bit now, as it has been one of the most empty parts of the park. So yay, can't wait to ride Flash Vertical Velocity. Can't wait. And lastly, coming in at the number 1 spot for best new roller coasters opening in the US for 2024, I could not put this at the number 1 spot, and I'm sure most of you all feel the same as well. Going up to Lake Erie, we have at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, the all new for 2024 Top Thrill 2 roller coaster. So for those of you who have been following along with the former Top Thrill Dragster roller coaster news, you know that this is the new 2.0 version of the past Top Thrill Dragster roller coaster, and it will be crazy. The ride before was crazy, but this is going to be like even crazier, because this will be the world's tallest and fastest triple launch strata coaster. For those of you who don't know, this coaster model is a swing launch, and it will be manufactured by Zamperla. So how exciting is it for an underdog coaster company like Zamperla taking on one of the biggest coaster projects of all time? This ride will have 3 separate launches, the first one taking you a speed of 74 miles per hour, then falling backwards down that 420-foot top hat and going a backwards launch of 101 miles per hour. This will be the speed taking you backwards up that massive 420-foot brand new vertical spike. The views from this spike, I am so excited for. I have never ridden a spike this tall in my life. there's no spike taller. How insane. Cannot wait. And the ride is not over yet. All things that go up must come down. So you will be dropping down that 420-foot spike, and when you make it back to that launch track, you will be going the ride's top speed and launching up to 120 miles per hour. This is when the racing theme kicks in. You are not messing around because you are racing for the sky up that massive 420-foot top hat. This time though, you will be making it over and cresting back down the other side and finishing your epic thrilling race run. And that is when you will cross your finish line. We have all been anticipating this new reimagined form of the past Top Thrill dragster for years now, and it's finally happening. So yeah, that is just my little rankings of the top 5 best new roller coasters opening this year in the US. So definitely make sure to let us know which of these is your most anticipated or favorite new coaster opening this year in 2024. We definitely would love to hear. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast. Bye guys!
Thanks again, Katie, for that segment, and it's great to have you on the podcast this week, and we'll definitely have you back on for some more segments, whether it's talk about coasters, parks, just something from God's Word, or just have you on just to hang out here. We love you, and we appreciate all you do, and if you don't know Miss Katie, I don't know how in the world do you not know Katie? Come on. It's Katie's Coasters. So if you don't know Katie, go ahead and check out her content. She's got some great YouTube videos, great social media content. Go ahead and check this out. That is Katie's Coasters on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads. And I'm sure it'll be a blessing to you and encouragement to you. So check that out. But thanks again, Katie, for joining us this week on the podcast with that segment. To wrap up our show this week, just to go over a few announcements and things coming up with Ride Your Life Ministries. We've got some guests coming on here soon, so let me look at my calendar here, my handy-dandy calendar. Next week is February. Actually, this week is February. The time of this recording, when this episode premieres, this week is the end of January 2024. We're moving into February 2024. This is crazy. I bet you this year is going to fly by fast. But next week is January 5th. We're going to be looking at our next thought from God's Word about this year's theme. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago in episode 2, our theme this year and our focus is Lord, increase our faith. And we're going to look at each month on our social media and on the podcast. We're going to look at this topic and break it down even more. And for the month of February, we want the Lord to increase our love for Him and our love for people. So next week, we're going to be looking into God's Word about Lord, increase our love. And come prepared just to have a Bible study next week. We're going to dive into God's Word, what it has to say about what is love. Bad timing, but what is love? And how can we love God? How can we love others? And just talk about practical ways to show love in a very unlovely world. So that's going to be next week. The following week, we have an awesome episode for you all. A new friend of mine here, I met him through a little park you may know. It's called Silver Dollar City. We have Sawyer Nichols coming on the podcast. He is the influencer coordinator for the park. And he's going to be talking about the park, a little bit of its history, talking about Hershen's history, talking about what's going on at the park, what's new for 2024, which if you're living under a rock, or if you don't know, that's totally cool too. But if you're a coaster enthusiast and don't know what's going on, where have you been? But we're going to be talking about Fire in the Hole a little bit. Their new updated version of this classic attraction from Silver Dollar City. We're going to talk about that, what you can expect from it, and what the 2024 calendar looks for Silver Dollar City, and talk about some other attractions that are associated with the park, including their water park and their showboat. You don't want to miss that episode. It is so much fun. It was great talking to Sawyer and just building that friendship there. So don't miss that episode, and that will be on Monday, February 12th. That's when we'll premiere the Silver Dollar City episode of the podcast. And then on the 19th, we're going to give a little report, just talk about the meetup that we have, which, by the way, we'll talk about this more in depth in just a moment, but we have the meetup coming soon to the Creation Museum and the Art and Design Studio for Answers in Genesis. So that will be the February 19th episode. I'm sure we'll throw other stuff into that episode as well to kill some time. Or it might. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how the episode goes. But we'll definitely give you an update on that meetup there. And you don't want to miss it. Trust me, you don't want to miss this meetup. It is so awesome. And then to wrap up February, we have, again, this is the cool thing about the podcast. I get to make some really cool friends from this and get to know some really neat people and some people that I follow their content and things like that. And people that people recommend come on here. And again, we make sure they're Christ honoring and that they're that they'll be an encouragement and something you all enjoy. So, but to wrap up February, we're going to have Mr. Sir Willow himself. And he is a YouTuber who was a former pastor and park employee for quite a few parks, including SeaWorld, Silver Dollar City, and Disney. So he's going to be talking about his time there, sharing some stories, and he's going to share his testimony. You do not want to miss that. And just how, man, his testimony, you have to hear it. Just how the Lord brought him to the saving knowledge of himself. How he came to know Jesus Christ as his Savior. It's a powerful story, and you do not want to miss it. So that is February 26th to wrap up the month. We're going to be sitting down with Sir Willow to talk about all things faith, family, fun, coasters, all that stuff. And he's got some funny stories you don't want to miss. But to get an idea of who Sir Willow is, go ahead and check out his YouTube channel. And he's got some phenomenal content out there that you don't want to miss. So that is our podcast schedule for February. And I hope it's an encouragement and a blessing to you all, and just something fun that you can listen to while you're out and about on your day. But as far as other news, we have the meetup coming up next month. We are just weeks away from our first meetup of 2024. And again, that is to the Creation Museum and Answers in Genesis Art and Design Studio. And this past week, I spoke with Alan Green, who was on the podcast last week, as I said. We kind of nailed down some things, got some last-minute details together, and this is going to be an exciting meetup you don't want to miss. He specifically told me, and he didn't give me details yet, but this is going to be a fun tour he's going to give us at the Art and Design Studio. And I don't know anything else. I'm excited to see what he has in store. I know it's going to be awesome. And just some of the projects he shared on last week's episode, I can't imagine what else is in that studio there, but you don't want to miss that. Here are some details to make you aware of. And you all are the first to hear this. We'll post it on Wednesday, all these details. But or next week we'll be posting these details. But you all are the first ones to hear because you're on the podcast. You're listening to this awesome podcast. So whatever. But here's what you can expect as far as an itinerary. The day is going to start at 1 p.m. at the Answers in Genesis Art and Design Studio, which is located at 2095 Global Way, Hebron, Kentucky, 41048. And again, all this information will be available on our social media next week. But we're going to start at the Answers in Genesis Art and Design Studio in Hebron, Kentucky, have an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of some of the projects they're working on. So we're going to see all the different pieces of machinery that they use, some of the exhibits that they're working on, and all that good stuff. And again, Alan didn't tell me anything about the tour other than it's going to be a lot of fun, and you don't want to miss it. He's got some really cool things planned for that. And then once we're done with that tour, we're going to make our way over to the Creation Museum, which is about 8 minutes away, which is not far at all. But here's the thing about the Creation Museum. You will need a separate ticket for that. The tour is absolutely free. We just want to have that for you all to enjoy and see some of that behind-the-scenes elements you wouldn't see anywhere else. So when you go to like Universal or Disney, you have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this kind of quality stuff. They won't let you see their attractions. They won't talk about any of those things unless you pay buku bucks for it. But we wanted to present this meetup to you just as a way to see what a design process is like for a well-themed, high-tech, top-notch quality exhibit and attraction. So that's why the tour is absolutely free. We want you to see that. But once we go over to the Creation Museum, we're all going to go over there. But at the backtrack a little bit, but at the tour, we're going to get a group photo, all that fun stuff. But once we get to the Creation Museum, we'll go through there. You'll have to pay for parking, which is $15 to park there, and that from there it'll lead into like their gardens area. We'll walk through the gardens, check it out, weather permitting, see what they got on the property there, and then we go into the museum. And here are the ticket prices for the museum. So children ages 10 and under are absolutely free, and that's a promo they're doing at the Creation Museum, rather there, and I believe it's free at the Ark Encounter too. But we're going to the Creation Museum. But it for children ages 10 and under are absolutely free at the Creation Museum. For youth, which is ages 11 to 17, it's $29.95. For adults ages 18 to 59, it is $49.95. And for seniors ages 60 plus, it is $44.95. And prices before taxing, that's what that is. And then parking is not included with your ticket. So you can order your tickets online now for that. You go to the Creation Museum or creationmuseum.com to order those, or you can purchase those the day of at the museum. So that's the Creation Museum ticket. But once you get in there, we have the museum there, just like any other guest there. So once we get in, we'll go just walk the museum and check out some of the newer exhibits. And I haven't been to the Creation Museum in years. And the last time I was there, they were redoing the first half of the museum. So everything in the first half of the museum is brand new. And so we're going to go through those, just check those out, and then go through the rest of the exhibits there. And even check out the Fearfully and Wonderfully Made exhibit that Alan and his team put together recently. And the Shadowlands exhibit there, which is depicting the life of Jesus. We'll check that out. And hopefully get to see the Palms Plaza show that he mentioned as well. I've seen pictures on social media of that, and it looks phenomenal. So we'll hopefully catch the Palm Plaza show at the end of the museum there. And then once you get out of the Palm Plaza, once you've gone through all the exhibits and things like that, you'll be led up to the gift shop, which is called the Dragon Hall Bookstore. And you have tons of Creation Museum merch, Angels and Genesis resources, and all that stuff there. And I believe the 4D theater is absolutely free, so we'll go check that out. And if you would like to experience the planetarium, which is a phenomenal show, I keep using the word phenomenal, but phenomenal doesn't do it justice. This is a state-of-the-art planetarium show that just talks about how God created the solar system in a very high-tech, I think it's 4K quality presentation. You lean back in your seats, and you see this beautiful show talking about how God created the solar system. And you don't want to miss that if you would like to experience that. But that is a separate ticket attraction at the museum. And I believe that is all the information I have so far. And again, we'll put out any more information next week. And definitely the days leading up to the meetup, which is on Saturday, February 17th at 1 p.m. It's, again, starting at the Art and Design Studio, then making our way over to the Creation Museum. So it's going to be a great day, and you don't want to miss it. Moving on to other news for Ride Your Life Ministries, we have some new merch over in the ROYL shop. And again, that's rideyourlifeshop.com. We have the Ask Me About My shirt, hoodie, mug, and other merch options. It's a QR code on the back I got this idea from KB, so shout out to KB for that. But when you scan that code, it will send whoever scanned that code to our website, which will give them the plan of salvation, the gospel presentation. We're hoping to build upon that resource there to where it will eventually have more media elements to it. But right now, it takes them to a basic, point blank layout of the gospel presentation. So once you scan that, you'll get the gospel. But I really like this merch line here, not just because it's Ride Your Life, but honestly, it's an easy tool to use when you go to a theme park or if you're just out and about. This is a way to get the gospel to someone because, people are curious. They're going to be like, what's this QR code do? Until they see the front of the shirt where it says, ask me about my shirt. They might see the front like, okay, what's so special about your shirt? You can direct them to the QR code, and then they will have the gospel on their phone or their device. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. You could go ahead and buy that on the ROYL shop. And here's what I have to say about the ROYL shop. We try to make the prices as low as we can so that you can have it. And t-shirts I know are $25. And we really don't get much profit from that. What little money we do get goes straight into Ride Your Life Ministries. It helps with any ministry needs such as meetups. So like if we give away gifts, which we don't have anything planned for the Creation Museum, but for Kings Island, we do have a few things in mind that we want to give away for that. It also helps pay for our website. That's not free at all. It helps pay for running the domain of the website, helps with publishing ads on social media, and just some other things we're working on and technology and all that stuff to where we can make Ride Your Life Ministries the best it can be. So all the money and proceeds, what little we do get, goes straight to this ministry to help further the gospel and to reach people and to make Christ known to all those who will listen. So that's the ROYL shop. We also have on there the theme for this year, which is Lord, Increase Our Faith. We have a logo there on a few different merch items. We have Jesus Saves, which has the verse on there. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which is lost. We have that. And we have some merch specifically for our meetups. So we have 2024 merch for the meetups on there. So I believe we have some bags. We have t-shirts, hoodies, and stickers and things like that, just to remember the meetups this year. We'll update that every year, but all that and plus more on the ROYL shop. Check that out. And then, of course, you can follow us on all social media and stay up to date with what's going on. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Ride Your Life Ministries. You can find us on X at ROYL without the A Ministries. And you can find us on YouTube at Ride Your Life Ministries there as well. And you can find us on Fruitful Radio each Sunday at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. with the Sunday morning wake-up call. I'm on there, and we just share the gospel, and we have fun while doing it. So check that out. And you can find that on our website, rideoflifeministries.com, as well as fruitfulmedia.app. And I believe that's all the announcements we have. And if I'm missing anything, you can find it on our social medias again. But thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Ride Your Life podcast. I hope it's been a blessing, help, and encouragement to you. And we look forward to next week here on the Ride Your Life podcast. God bless y'all. We'll catch at you next week. Okay. We'll see you next week. All right. God bless y'all. Peace. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Ride Your Life podcast. We hope it's a blessing, help, and encouragement to you. You can connect with us here at Ride Your Life Ministries on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Ride Your Life Ministries. You can also find us on X at ROYL Ministries, and that's ROYL without the A. You can find us on our website at rideyourlifeministries.com, and you can text us at the ROYL hotline at 513-285-8319. And again, that is 513-285-8319. 285-8319. We'd love to hear with you and connect with you and help you in your walk with Christ. You can also find us on the Fruitful Radio at the ROYL Show each Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We take the best of the best from the podcast and bring it to you through the radio waves. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast streaming platform and also leave a review so that the word gets out to those who need to hear it. We hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next Monday. God bless.